for a very, very long time, our organizational models have just been, the steps are dictated to you, then you need to pick it up. And we've not been using a lot of the human aspects where we sit back and we engage to solve the problem together. And so, which I thought was fascinating, Brian. I hadn't thought about the chalkboard versus PowerPoint dynamic, but because we've been doing it for so long, but that's. Okay, so our first question today is, I'm trying to build an open organization where people feel empowered to propose their own solutions, but it seems like people are still going along with whatever I say. How can I foster more input from all levels of the organization?
So I think one of the most important things to do here, and for me personally, it's always the hardest, is just have to shut up for a little bit. Even in a well-established open organization where everyone understands the principles and buys in, I think there's a natural tendency for people who are in positions of leadership, whether that's organizationally or just by reputation, when they say something, you're like, you know what, they're smart, I'm going to go along with that. And so when you're in that kind of role, you really have to step back a little bit and let the conversation develop for a little bit before you jump in with your opinion, because you don't want to sort of shut down conversation. And I've seen this happen in places where, somebody who's a team lead, they're answering a question right away and everyone else is like, all right, well, I guess I don't have to then. Being a very backseat participant for a while really helps encourage the rest of the community to bring their solutions to the table first.
I like that advice. One thing that I have trouble with, that I think is an answer to this problem that I struggle with personally, is asking questions and posing problems for which or to which you genuinely don't know the answer or don't have a solution, right? So if your team or your group or your partners or whatever get the sense that you're asking them, but you already have a plan, they're less likely to jump in, right? And I'm a planner, right? It's just my nature. And so when I see a challenge or have a problem in front of me, I'm quick to try to develop a plan and tell other people about it. But as a leader, I think the more your team gets the sense that you genuinely don't know the best way forward, you don't know the solution, and you're asking them genuinely to help them solve it rather than kind of to listen to your idea and talk through it. And what do you think of this? Right? If you're posing an idea and you say, what do you think of this? Or what problems do you see with this? Or what challenges? You've already kind of proposed a solution and given them the out. But if you come to them with genuine questions, challenges to which you don't know the answers or solutions, that's going to empower them. It's going to force them in some ways and help them feel empowered to push back, to invent things, to innovate on a problem. It's sort of, I don't know if this analogy holds, but I take it from teaching. Like, it's one of the reasons why when I teach courses in the universities, I don't use PowerPoint. I use a chalkboard, because when I use PowerPoint and I ask for input, I find that nobody speaks up because they know that the answer is on the slide. And if they just wait, I'll click and the answer will show up on the slide because I've already got it there and they're just waiting for it to come. But if I use the blackboard and I have no existing materials, we have to create the thing together. And if I ask a question, I genuinely don't have the stuff in the air around me, and the students have to come back with a solution. And I write it on the board. We co-create it together. It's not just me holding it until they come up with it, right? And that's hard. It's more challenging, but it makes for a better experience. And I find that engagement increases as a result.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. One of the things I think, we're sort of tempted to do is say, oh, well, we're an open organization, so we have to, send everything to people for their input, even if a decision is already made. And, I think that actually harms the credibility of the culture overall. It's not a performative thing. It's, ask questions when you honestly want input, not just to check a box to say, oh, we're being open.
I agree with both of you that this is, there's like a learning aspect that leads to full adoption and integration of something, but there's also, kind of, Ben, how you started off, a lot of this is behavioral. So we have to, especially as a leader, a lead in whatever that team dynamic looks like, is we do have to do the hard work of sitting back and allowing some things to happen. Because, you know, also for a very, very long time, our organizational models have just been, the steps are dictated to you, then you need to pick it up. And there's not been, we've not been using a lot of the human aspects where we sit back and we engage to solve the problem together. And so, which I thought was fascinating, Brian. I hadn't thought about the chalkboard versus PowerPoint dynamic, but because we've been doing it for so long, but that's, you know, that switching to a place where people are actively engaging and learning. And then that can help shift that dynamic, is if they're seeing the behaviors modeled and then they're learning what those behaviors are, towards being open, or how you even interact and engage as a team to solve problems is huge. And then from there, I think it becomes almost like second nature for people once they've been in that practice for a little bit of learning what it feels like. And that actually is I would say less tricky in terms of implementing open in your organization, versus just thinking, well, the first thing we have to do is change all of our processes and all of our models and all of this. That is also hard, but the structural part is more difficult than, you know, what can you start with as a person today? You can start with changing your behavior and modeling that, and then engaging everybody in those open values and principles. And then it begins to move through because people want to embody it.